This week on Munchkin Land, we reflect back on GenCon. Well, apparently last week, I forgot to release a Munchkin Land, but that's okay because there was so much going on at GenCon50 over there in Indiana, and Samantha Nelson, who is one of our game masters over at Critical Hit, went to the show, and she's back to share some of her thoughts and reactions. So, Sam, thanks for joining us this week.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So this was the 50th anniversary of Gen Con. How crazy was it at the event?
It was super crazy. I mean, this year they were not selling any tickets at the door. That's usually not the case. And everything had sold out. Normally they start off selling 4-day passes, which the 4-day passes usually sell out at some point. But then they tend to have lots of 1-day passes. Every single day sold out of this con.
Yeah, I saw that like a couple of weeks before even is what I thought I saw. But for some reason, a lot of people weren't talking about it being a sellout crowd until like the day of the event. And I was like, well, gee, I could have swore it was sold out weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was old news. So.
Well, that's cool. So I'm sure that with sellout crowds, everything was packed and there were long lines for everything. Did that detract from the fun?
I mean, it's tough. Like I was covering the con for Polygon, so I sometimes got a little bit of elite treatment in that if there was a game that had an hour-long wait to demo, I could say I really need to demo this game because I'm writing about it and kind of hop the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's the thing. This is not that new of a phenomenon. I mean, it's last year I went to a lot of events where they were, everything was sold out, where the line was 2 hours long to buy a game, which just blows my mind because it's just, the fact that you need to spend that much time in your 4-day of a con just to try to take home whatever the hot game is bonkers. I mean, I want to be able to try something new myself, but I'm usually willing to wait for like another few weeks to get it outside of the con if it means I can spend more time playing games.
Oh yeah. Now, were there any games that you just had to go and buy while you were at the show or tried to go and buy but couldn't?
Well, that's a good question. I really wanted to get a copy of L5R because it's I don't know how much you know about Legend of the Five Rings, but
that's everybody's talking about that. And didn't they come out with a new release or some new factions for that?
Exactly. So I think it's the same factions. You've got your Lion Clan and Dragon Clan, but that was the big release. Fantasy Flight's one of their big releases of the convention was this new version of the Legend of the Five Rings game, which I did get to demo, and it was fantastic.
Oh, cool.
Unfortunately, the game, they were giving people tickets to come get the game because the lines were so long.
Oh, man.
And it had totally sold out by Friday, although there was like some speculation that maybe some people wouldn't show back up and then the tickets that hadn't been claimed would be claimed by Saturday. But I think it all went totally and there was also a tournament, and the tournament sold out within 10 minutes of going live, which was a really incredible thing that they just handed people this game that they'd never played before and said, all right, you're going to play competitively now.
Wow. So did you partake in that, or was that outside of your time schedule?
I was not able to participate in the tournament. Not that I think I'd be in any way good enough for it. I was like casually interested in the old game, but I did get to demo it, and it is a lot of fun. It is a very tactical, very double thinky, very complex card game, and I'm really looking forward to finally getting a copy myself and getting to play it some more.
Yeah, so I also saw Fantasy Flight had a new Star Wars miniatures battle game that was out. I don't know if you got a chance to take a look at that or not, but a lot of people were chatting about it online.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play that one because honestly, I'm not a big tactical miniatures person. I have tried some of their other tactical miniatures games like Armada and X-Wing.
Right.
And I prefer to tend to be more of a skirmishy games thing as opposed to things that involve too much of plotting things out on maps with rulers.
Yeah, me too. I know a lot of people were excited about it, but I just was like, oh, okay. I'm sure for fans that want to paint miniatures and put them to battle, that'll be fun. But for me, I was kind of like, I'll pass on that one. But I did see that they were coming out with the 35th anniversary Star Wars RPG manuals again.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I
so
had
I have a feeling that a lot of people will be going out to pick up that game. I mean, that book's been out of print for a long time, even though there have been other companies that have had the Star Wars RPG properties. But a lot of people may be scrambling for that when it finally arrives. I think
yeah,
that
that's
arrives at
interesting.
the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm a big fan of Fantasy Flight's Star Wars RPG,
Hmm.
so I really enjoyed that system a good deal. But I played the old Star Wars D20 system, and I prefer the Fantasy Flight version. I gotta say, another Fantasy Flight game that was getting a lot of attention that I did get to demo was Fallout, which
Mm.
isn't going to be out for a while. This was just a like a demo test that they had, but it was a really good time. If you're a fan of the video game,
Yeah,
they
so
they
this is the
take
board game version of the video game.
exactly.
Hmm.
So it's a kind of semi-cooperative game where everyone has their secret goal, and it's a mix of exploring the map and completing quests. And in a very Bethesda fashion, you get quests where you don't exactly know what your decisions are going to reward or punish you with. And in also good Fallout flavor, there are four different characters that are all representing different kind of types of people from Fallout. So you can be a super mutant or a ghoul or a vault dweller.
Hmm.
And it was a really good time. I'm looking forward to checking out the full game.
Well, the show is Munchkin Land, so I have to ask if you had a chance to go check out the Munchkin Shakespeare edition over at the Steve Jackson Games booth.
No, I'm afraid not. Every year I come up with this huge list of games that I want to check out, and every year I wind up getting maybe a fifth of those, and then, but like usually I wind up trying some games that I'd never even heard of before I walked into the con. So
Hmm.
it's kind of a push and pull there.
So, what was besides the Legends of the Five Rings? What's another game that you really got a kick out of checking out at Gen Con?
Well, so another game that I really liked is it's not out yet, but Plaid Hat Games has this game called When I Dream
Mm.
coming,
Hmm.
and it is a really just neat game. What attracted me to it immediately was that it involves blindfolds. So you have one player who's the dreamer, and they are blindfolded. And in the middle of the table, you have a deck of cards, and each card has a really neatly illustrated picture and a word on it. So that could be something like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
are you familiar with this?
Now that you're explaining it, yes, I have seen. I think a demo of this somewhere, or I read it about what it is. Now, go ahead and keep explaining. But yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about now.
Okay. So so each card has a word on it. So it could be banana
Hmm.
or horse, or trumpet. And then some number of the players are fairies, which means that their goal is to help the dreamer guess the word correctly. And some group of players are the boogeymen, and they want the player to fail. And then there's the weirdest, hardest role is the Sandman. And at the end of each player's turn, they want to have as close to possibly a equal number of successes and failures.
Hmm.
And so then each player goes around giving a one-word clue to the dreamer. So if it was banana, a fairy might say fruit, and then the boogeyman might say vegetable.
Mm.
And so the kind of the finessey goal is that the boogeyman and the Sandman always want to have their clues be like somewhat um, plausible, because they want to try to not get the player to tune them out, but they want them to just subtly mislead them enough that they guess wrong.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I think I have seen. This must have been maybe one of the European conventions where they were talking about it. I didn't get to see everything about it, but it looked really cool, and I like the idea of trying to explain to someone who's blindfolded. Since we've played that game so much at like Nerdtacular over the last couple of years, it can be a super challenging game, and that could be a lot of fun in the long run. And providing that everybody gets a turn behind the blindfold, I think that could
Yeah,
be a
for
lot
sure.
of really a lot of fun. What else was there at the convention that caught your eye?
So I my well, so I've got to talk about Starfinder, which
Oh
was one
yes.
of the other enormous releases of the
I think
convention.
I know Brian has been poring over the manuals for the last couple of days. I just picked up the manual this weekend and started flipping through it. Plus one of the adventures, I guess the start adventure that they released, and then I think even Rodrigo has been flipping through it. And the one of the cool mechanics, and tell me if this is not cool or not, is everybody gets a job when it comes to commanding a starship and fighting in space.
Yeah, that's correct. I know there are some complications where it can be an issue if you have, say, too many players. When if say you wind up with someone whose job it is to fire a specific weapon and your ship doesn't have that weapon, or
Oh
if you
yeah.
have too many players so that not everyone has a clear job, that can be an issue. So you kind of it really forces you to have a very balanced party.
Hmm.
Um, which is, I haven't had the chance to try out the space combat yet, but I'm really excited about it. You know, I had the chance to talk to one of the creators of the game, James Sutter, about his inspirations and kind of the mechanics that they were using and what it means for Pathfinder at large. And I think it's just a really cool project.
So it seems like a lot of people are very excited, just beyond all those of us here at Major Spoilers who are excited about it. It seems like a lot of other people are looking at this as, yes, it's using the Pathfinder mechanics, but ooh, it's in space. And I talked with Dan, the tabletop man, a while ago, and it seems like games are starting to have a bigger push into the space arena. And it's interesting that we're getting this from Paizo, so that we can have an RPG in space. I mean, we've got Star Trek that's also out. There's
Yeah,
Rocket
Modiphius
Men.
launched that.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah,
it's
no,
just interesting.
I absolutely agree. You know, like I said when I was talking with the Paizo people, this has apparently been something that they've wanted to do for a while. They kind of call it their version of, you know, if Pathfinder is Warhammer, then this is their Warhammer 40K, or if, you know, Pathfinder is Warcraft, this is their Starcraft. They're, you know, obviously they love fantasy and they love science fiction and they want to have their cake and eat it too. But just one thing to correct in that it's not fully the Pathfinder system. It's close.
Hmm.
You can take some of your Pathfinder characters and races and monsters and convert them relatively quickly to Pathfinder, but they do have a fair number, or it's just Starfinder, sorry. But they do have a fair number of rules changes, and for the most part, those are going to be simplifying rules to
Oh,
kind of
cool.
get rid of some of the head crunching numbers that I think feel like a lot of you guys and listeners have been baffled by when it comes to Pathfinder itself.
Oh yeah. In fact, we got an email from someone this week who was just like, you know, I hate the crunch of Pathfinder, but all of the players in your game are doing such a wonderful job, and Sam makes it flow so smoothly that it doesn't seem as pain in the neck as as it has been for other players. So
Yeah.
it's interesting about that, and I've really enjoyed the Pathfinder system. And if
Well,
this
thank you.
means that the games are being, or if the rules are even more streamlined, then I don't know. I think this is something that we need to look into as a
Oh,
possible game in
absolutely.
the near future, because Starfinder really, really looks cool, and it has me excited in a whole lot of different ways.
For sure.
What else was there?
So my absolute favorite game of the convention was a surprise. It was not a game I was aware of before I went in, but it was a game called Mountains of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and you know, I played a lot of Cthulhu games before. You know, your Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror, um, and so when I first saw someone put this on the table, I was like, really, another Cthulhu game? Um, but the difference here is that instead of just tracking your sanity with, you know, little chips that say,
Yeah.
or even little like negative penalties that affect your rolls or something like that, you get madness cards that you have to effectively act out during certain phases of the game. So it's very basic mechanically. You have, you know, you're moving up this mountain and you have to do it by getting together certain resources.
Mm.
Except for that, you only have 30 seconds to pool your resources to get a specific number, and you can't go under or over. And while you're trying to get that number, you know, you have some person that will only speak to people who are holding up a finger mustache. And you have another
Wow.
person who will only answer questions if addressed by their character's name. And so, you know, that figuring out what it is that allows you to communicate with every person or how to deal with their crazy quirks that this deck has dealt them out
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of that 30 seconds. And so winds up with a lot of panicked. I think that we have the cards we need. I don't know. Oh, dear God, everyone just put it in and see what happens.
And this is from Aiello.
Yes, Aiello.
Cool.
And it's actually designed by one of the co-creators of Pandemic Legacy, so it's got quite the pedigree.
Oh, neat. Did you get to play the entire game, or did you just
Oh,
get
I
a
played the
sample of it?
entire game twice, and it
Wow.
was great.
So how
'Cause
long's the game? I see listed here it takes anywhere from 80 to 90 minutes
yeah, that's
to play
about
a
right.
game.
I'd say an hour and a half is really. We played it with 5 players both times, and with that amount of people, I'd say about an hour and a half is really where you're going.
Does this
But it
have a lot
is.
of is there a lot of replayability on this, or once you
Oh,
understand the
yes.
mechanics, is it pretty easy to move through?
No, there's a lot of replayability because there's so many different madness cards and so many different like combinations that can play really well or poorly with one another.
Hmm.
So you just are wondering, having these like really unexpected combinations and just watching your friends go insane is really entertaining.
Oh, cool. So Upper Deck this last week on the 17th launched their legendary DXP system on the App Store for Apple mobile devices. It'll be out on Steam and Google apps later, is what they said. But it's officially launched, and I think they did it in time for Gen Con so that they could show it off. And if you're a fan of the legendary game, like I am, like Rob is, it was something that was a must-have for me. So I downloaded it and played the heck out of it over the weekend. I think there were not very many people that downloaded it though, because by the end of Saturday, I had moved into 5th place ranking,
Oh wow.
and got a bunch of prizes and stuff like that. But I did a playthrough video. If anybody's listening to check this out, it's over on our YouTube channel, Major Spoilers Video. It's a good game. It has a lot of potential, but unfortunately, it's also full of bugs. It's not uncommon for me to have to cancel the application in the middle of the game like 4 or 5 times per game to bring it back up. And of course, it dumps you right back into the game where you were last left off. But things are hanging and there's so many glitches and stuff. I looked at the App Store website, and they did say that as soon as Gen Con was over, there would be so many bug fixes that come out that people would be hard pressed to keep up with it. But I know we've talked about it before on the show, and we've played Legendary on this show, and we've mentioned Legendary DXP, but I thought I would let people know that it is out on the App Store. It's not the alpha release. It's not a beta release. It almost feels like a wide beta at this point. I think they just wanted to get it out in time for the show, but it is buggy, but do give it a chance. So Sam, I don't know if you're a Legendary fan, but that was a kind of a cool find that happened at Gen Con for me.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I did. I've never played Legendary. I do like deck building games, but my preferred one is Ascension.
Oh yeah, that one's fun too. Cool. Okay, what else do you have on your list?
So one other game that I tried, which is a Kickstarter game that they were testing it out there. It had a significant amount available to purchase there, and they were coming out with a lot more later this year. Was actually a collectible card game called Final War, which was really neat in that it is a multiplayer collectible card game, but you also have this extra element of this center deck that has wandering monsters and other cards that people can draw that'll help or hurt them, which just adds almost just a very different element to your standard head-to-head match. And the decks are really fun and flavorful. So one of the game I played was against my husband, who was playing lycanthropes. And so that he had the ability to, anytime he damaged or killed an enemy, which included both these wandering monsters and my own characters, turn them into were creatures and then add them to his team, which was really nasty. So I'm looking forward to challenging him to a rematch.
And do we know when that is, or who the manufacturer is?
Yeah, so it's later this year. Is they're going to be releasing a good deal more support for that. Let me see if I can get a date for you. But they currently only have 3 factions, which is the werewolves, elves, and these guild thieves, which I haven't tried the chance to try yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the looks like the name is the company is called Games Lab, and they're pretty much brand new, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that has to do. And then of course there's also an app, because I feel like almost all collectible card games have to have a digital form these days.
Yeah. Speaking of CCGs, Munchkin CCG was unveiled at Gen Con as well. I'm not sure what I think about this yet. This was announced like a year ago, and it's been kind of all over the place, but it looks like they will officially launch the Munchkin CCG in February of 2018 with 3 2-deck starter sets, and then a bunch of course, the blind bags, where each bag will have 12 cards, including at least 1 rare card, and those will sell for $3.95 a piece. The starter packs are going to be $24.95 a piece, so they're right in that same range as what you would find for other CCGs. But I'm kind of hesitant on this Munchkin CCG because I'm not really not really super excited about it, but I know a lot of people are interested to see what Steve Jackson Games brings to the table with this thing. So, what else did we see there at the show?
Oh, some of the other good games that I tried. So there was another pretty fun game that I tried called Gloomhaven.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is again, it's a game that is been attracting a lot of attention. I the demo I tried was not the best since it was very focused on the kind of skirmishing mechanics, which aren't too dissimilar from what you're going to see in a game like Descent.
Mm-hmm.
But from my friends who have played the game and are familiar with it, they say that there's just like a lot more there in terms of the basically choose your own adventure, quests chaining off of each other, and really just deep entertainment. So I am very curious to try the full game at some point.
Yeah, so they just finished their second Kickstarter for their second release. So I went ahead and got in on that, and I'm kind of excited about this game because, again, I've seen a lot of other people play it and talk about it, and it is a legacy game. So as you complete quests, your characters build, and as they build, eventually they will retire. You'll get to put stickers all over a giant map, and then, of course, you got your dungeon crawl experience type stuff as well. And that looks kind of cool. I think the second edition is supposed to come out before the end of the year. I think we're supposed to get it in time for Christmas, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Gloomhaven has been a talk of the town for quite some time, and I know a lot of people have been very interested in it. And depending on when we get it, it will probably be on our 2018 Munchkin lineup.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Now, a year ago, Sam, when you were on the show giving us a Gen Con wrap up, you had mentioned that you were able to partake in what is it, the competitive Pathfinder RPG? Is that what it was?
Yes, it is. And unfortunately, I played again this year, but my team did not advance to the final rounds. So
Boo, your team is awful.
Yeah.
Again, tell people what this is about, because this is something that goes on at all of the Gen Cons, and I think it's an interesting story for people that may not be familiar with it.
Sure. So this is a group called the Four Horsemen. They're all third-party game designers, and they run this tournament for Pathfinder where they have groups of 5 people play a game, and everyone's playing the same adventure. And then they're scored based on objectives that I'm not entirely clear on. But and then after that, they decide who advances to the next round. And last year, my team won the entire tournament. So I feel like there might have been some handicapping against us this year.
Maybe, I don't know. That'd be interesting. Do you ever have a wish to try to run one of those? Being a GM or something at one of those events?
So that event I wouldn't be able to, because that event is only for all the DMs have published some form of third-party Pathfinder or D&D resource, which is
kind of like Weird Western that might need a third-party release, huh?
Yeah, well, I guess if I was to write a actual book about that, that's quite the project. But the thing I have actually considered is another separate tournament called Iron GM, which is much like Iron Chef. You have dungeon masters come in, and they have are given 3 words, and they have to create a adventure based on those 3 words, and then run it.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, so it's like a very intense competition, and usually it's almost always some version of 3.5, 5th Ed, or Pathfinder as the system, though you do apparently get people running weirder things. Like there was one table this year where someone offered to run Vampire the Masquerade.
Wow.
But yeah, I believe this year's words were Azer, Astral Plane, and now I'm blanking on the third one. But and yeah, it just kind of really shows off your creativity and fast thinking.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun too. I just that kind of stuff just tickles me. I wish I was that good to participate in that kind of stuff.
You should come to Gen Con next year.
Well, so I think that's probably the plan. So right now, in the past, we've gone to Nerdtacular every year, or a bunch of us have. And because that has quote unquote ended, it looks like Gen Con is going to be the destination next year, providing it lines up correctly with school and all that stuff. And I believe Scott Johnson even said that he was going to try to make a destination out of Gen Con next year. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, it's still going to be crowded next year, but I don't think it's going to be packed crowded like the 50th anniversary event was.
That's certainly my hope, in that, there were people who were coming from all over the country to be there for the 50th anniversary. They actually turned Lucas Oil Stadium, where the Colts play, into a GenCon museum for the event. So they were showing off things from the event's history, and then also, from major role-playing games. So they had first prints of various books, and so it was really a special event because of the Big 50. Now, it's also an event that gets bigger and bigger every year as more game designers want to come out and more people want to come out. So my bet is it'll sell out again, and that all the hotels in Indianapolis will sell out again, but hopefully it'll be slightly more manageable.
Yeah, so the plan is that we're going to try to go next year. At least I'm going to try to go next year, and you and I can hang out. And I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, if Sam's going to be there, I want to say hi to her." So I don't know if a lot of people were able to come up to you or find you or anything like that. But,
yeah, I mean, in a crowd of 60,000 people, I don't especially stand out, so I didn't wind up encountering any people from that I knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would love that. I'm there every year. I live in Chicago, and Indianapolis is just a quick 3-hour car ride for me. So it is a destination that I always find worth visiting.
Yeah, and so be on the lookout for that next year, and you'll never know where we will pop up next. Sam, thank you so much for joining us this week on Munchkin Land. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. And listeners, questions at podcast at majorspoilers.com. And we will be back next week with another show. I think next week might be the time I finally get to play One Deck Dungeon. But until then, remember, it's not cheating if you don't get caught.
This podcast is copyright 2017 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.
Is part of the Frog Pants Studios network. For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.